When my wife and I bought this house in 2017, the deck area was surrounded by garden beds. We soon decided that wet garden beds next to brick wall foundations was a bad idea. So after a little garden removal activity, our deck now looked like this. After 4 years, I've had enough of these nails working loose, and we also want to change the colour. I'll start by setting up my 4 trestles. Then I'll pry up some of the decking boards and stack them on the trestles. Then we can move on to the denailing. This always takes a lot longer than you'd expect. Now I'll shovel out the remaining garden bed dirt that I skipped 4 years ago. And sweep out the 20 years worth of dirt that's built up under the deck. After I'd removed the boards, I found that one of the joists had a rotten section. I used my sabre saw to cut through the joist nails and remove the joist. This is much easier than using a hammer, and it causes less damage to the timbers that I want to reuse. I've just cut loose the short joist nearest to the wall. It needs to be replaced with a longer piece, but it's the right size to replace the rotted joist. So I'll mark a line across the rotten joist and cut it across with the sabre saw. I'll be putting a new longer joist in place near the wall. That'll also cover the old trapdoor. I'll need to cut about 50mm or 2 inches off the end of the existing joist, so that my new one can rest on the support block underneath it. The support block was a bit wobbly, so I hammered a few nails into it. That'll allow the new joist to fit in place like this. Both of those replacement joists are longer than they need to be, so I'll mark their correct lengths, then saw off the excess. While the joists are out is a good time to remove those big rocks from the old garden bed. This kind of thing is a lot harder than it used to be. I think Earth's gravity is getting stronger or something. Now we can nail the new joist into position. The joist wood's old and dry, so I'm pre-drilling it to avoid splitting. I'm bracing the joist with my foot so it doesn't run away while I nail it. I'll drill and nail the other end in the same way. Once the ends are secure, I can drill and drive in the remaining nails. I'm using ordinary 100mm or 4-inch nails for this. Galvanised nails would be better, but I think these nails will still last longer than me. There, that's as solid as the Rock of Gibraltar. Now it's time to go back to the trestles and wash those deck boards. That noise is an adolescent magpie. Just like all teenagers, he stands in front of the refrigerator and complains that there's nothing to eat. Now we'll lay down some drop cloths before we start painting. These deck boards were oil treated, so I'm going to be using an oil-based primer to make sure the paint will stick. Stir that paint thoroughly every time. Then apply a generous coat of primer to all the boards. I'll only be painting the tops and sides of the boards, I'm not worrying about their bottoms. Once the primer's completely dried, we can apply the finishing paint. This usually needs a lot of stirring to thoroughly mix it. This clip's running at 20 times speed. I then painted each board with 2 coats of finish paint. My trestles were only big enough to hold 10 deck boards at a time, so this painting process had to be done in stages. Once each set of boards had been painted, I put them back on the deck in their original positions. I dropped in thin nails to make sure the boards lined up to their original holes in the joists. Then I used galvanised screws to reattach the boards. While I waited for the deck board paint to dry, I pulled the treads off the stairs and found some more dirt to clean out. This dirt is basically all that's left after 20 years of leaves blowing onto the deck, so I just put it on the garden. The stairs are bolted to the ground, so I'll just paint them where they are. I want to cover this area where the garden bed used to be, but I'll need some framework to attach the decking to. This leftover piece of joist should work just fine. I'll also need this small piece on the side. These boards also need to be washed before I can paint them. I'm going to use newspaper instead of a drop cloth, because the paper will slide between the deck and the slate tiles. Then we'll brush on the primer as usual. I've tried to minimise the amount of low to the ground work because it's hard on my back. After 2 weeks of effort, I replaced the final board. This was delayed because of rain and because I had to go back to work after my holidays. A few minutes later, I drove in the final screw and I was done. Oh yeah, except for that bit. Bear with me for a moment. The paint's still quite soft and vulnerable to scratching, so I need to be careful with the furniture. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Tightwad Workshop is filmed in front of a live studio audience.